This episode is made possible by Badlands Pets. As you all know, Mojo, my precious baby, is the reason why I found love in the first place. He made me feel love again. So I would do anything to ensure his health and longevity. And actress Katherine Heigl and I have that in common. She's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to improve any dog's health, and that's their food. So fortunately, she found that just by adding a few special superfoods to her dog's food, she saw huge transformations in their health. So she's made a 20-minute video explaining step by step how anyone can do the same thing to see incredible changes in their dog's health. I've definitely re-looked at what I'm feeding Mojo and making sure that, hey, he only has one life to live, and I want to make sure it's the best damn life. So if you want to keep your dog healthy and happy, go to badlandsfood.com/dateable and watch Catherine's video right now. Again, that's badlandsfood.com/dateable.
I was so excited to get my shipment from Last Bottle Wines in the mail the other day, full of incredible red wines, all from Napa Valley. I love wine tasting, so having this to my door couldn't be happier. Also, couldn't be more excited that today's episode is brought to you by Last Bottle Wines. If you don't know already, they're a Napa-based online wine shop with a twist. They offer just one handpicked wine per day until it sells out, and they're always at incredible prices. We're talking 30 to 70% off retail. And the best part is that there's no subscriptions, no fees, and no minimum purchase. And I could not be more excited to bring this offer right now because they're having a marathon sale, which is coming up March 28th and 29th. Even better, we're offering Dateable listeners 10% off your first order with code DATEABLE. So if you are a wine lover like me, this is a great time to join. And did I mention that shipping is 100% free? So what are you waiting for? Mark your calendar for March 28th and 29th, or get on it earlier if you want. You can sign up at lastbottlewines.com and use code DATEABLE and find out why Last Bottle is the most fun way to discover and buy amazing wine.
The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host, Julie Krafchick. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything, from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. We are excited you've joined us for an older episode. While our earlier seasons were all about dating in San Francisco, we quickly realized all the themes and learnings are universal for all daters. So we shifted to covering dating from all around the world as the seasons progress. The fun part is, things happen first in San Francisco, the tech epicenter and counterculture capital of the world. We love for you to keep tuning in to our older episodes, but there is no set order to listen in, so feel free to jump to more recent seasons or relevant episodes for you. Enjoy the show. This episode of Dateable is brought to you by Scoot. You can explore San Francisco on electric scooters and have the best first date of your life. Dateable listeners get a special deal. Sign up for $10 and get 3 hours of scooting. Sign up at scoot.co/dateable or use the code HOTDATE. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show that opens up a candid conversation about dating in San Francisco.
And that voice that sounds tired but is still fighting strong is my wonderful, beautiful co-host, UA.
And that nice, young, refreshed, not tired voice comes from Michael Vargas. So on each episode, we dissect a dating story. Today, I was told that we have sort of a deeper dating story. We haven't really done deep stories yet, right, Michael?
Not yet, but we're about to jump in 8 feet deep.
Whoa, all right. We have Ketan on the line. Ketan, you there?
Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing?
We're good. What is your story?
So last year, I was on OkCupid, as sometimes I do, and I met a girl, and everything was great in the beginning. We went on our first date, and it was like magic from day one. you know, where everything just hit off. She wanted the same things. I wanted the same things. We were both very attracted to each other. She was mature. I mean, on our first date, I went down to South Bay to see Aziz Ansari's show, and she pulled up in a Tesla.
Ooh, I am a big fan of Teslas. I already like her.
That's hot.
And I was like, wow, okay, this is on. This is real. And we had sparks from the beginning. Like I think it was the fastest I've ever kissed someone. We met, and 45 minutes later, we had our first kiss.
Wow.
And we weren't drunk or anything. It was just, the connection was there. So we started the date, and, things were great. And then I started noticing we were at a party one time, and, I think...
Hold on, but before you go on, how long were you guys seeing each other before this party?
I think it'd been a month.
Okay.
It'd been a month. So I think in social circles in general, drinking is obviously a part of the conversation, right? You go out, you go to happy hour, you go out on a date, you go drink, and I am been known to enjoy. So where the real story starts is I have a daughter, and on my birthday I decided, this is 2 months in now, and we had this great relationship. I mean, everything was going good. I mean, I'd noticed a couple things with these red flags, and I just, I think when you're excited about someone, you brush them over for whatever reason.
Right.
But she meets my daughter, and no one's met my daughter in 5 years. I'm very protective. It's important to me, right, that you
Absolutely
only at the right time. I don't want people coming in and out of her life. But I had this birthday party. It was a Mad Men picnic at Fort Mason. Everyone was dressed up. Everyone was having a good time. We're all having a good time. And, obviously, again, it's my birthday, so I'm drinking. But towards the end of the evening, I realized that she's gotten a little drunk. And on the way home, we're dropping off my daughter, and she gets sick and throws up in the car. My date. And I was such in shock. I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? But I was just I had never had this happen. I've never gotten sick in front of my kid. None of my friends ever have. It's I didn't know how to handle it. And I think I was just so in shock. And so we come home after we had dropped my daughter off, and I mistakenly, now I've learned my lesson, I try to argue with a drunk person.
Don't do it.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, that wasn't cool at all. That was totally uncalled for and immature. Like, I didn't appreciate that at all. And she got very upset. And it was the actual day of my birthday. And she said to me, this is not going to work. You can't judge me. I'm breaking up with you.
Okay.
And I'm like, wait a minute. What are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Like, you're not breaking up with me on my birthday, first of all. We're both drunk, so let's not maybe make any hasty decisions. Let's sleep on it. We'll figure it out the next day. Whatever happened, I, again, stupidly, probably foolishly in hindsight, let it go. Because everything else matched up so well. We had a future that we talked about. She wanted kids. I wanted kids. She was ambitious. I was ambitious. Everything lined up so well, and I was just thought maybe it was a one-time thing, right? So then I'm going to this wedding in Italy. My friends are getting married. And because it was a long vacation, like 2 weeks, and we were going to this romantic place, I invited her. I said, do you want to go? And at first she was like, I don't know, it's pretty early. I said, you're right, it is pretty early, but I'm also going to like Sweden and Italy and Greece. She's like, yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. So she came. So it started off great. Everything was great.
How far relationship are you guys now at?
We're at 3 months.
Wow, that is pretty early.
So noticing a pattern, every month something interesting happens. Okay, keep going.
Exactly. I wasn't noticing the pattern because I think I was head over heels in love, At this point, we had said we loved each other, and I wasn't bashful about it. I was thinking this is the person I might have a future with, right? So we go to this wedding in Italy, and it is the thing that I think people dream about. We're in the Amalfi Coast, in this town that's looking over the water. We're at this hotel that got rated #1 hotel by Travel and Leisure last year. I mean, the reception is like overlooking the ocean, and we get to it, and I notice there's a reflecting pool, like an infinity pool.
Mm-hmm.
And we're with my, there's 40 of my SF friends there. And look, my friends party. We know how to have a good time. And obviously, it's a wedding. People are going to party. We're literally living the dream at this point, right? We're in Italy, having what I'm thinking is the night of my life, right? This is fantastic. And what could be more romantic than taking a girl to Italy to a wedding like this, right?
Right.
And at some point, she says to me, hey, do you want to get in? I turn around and to take my shoes off. When I turn back, she's fallen in the pool with all
Fallen?
her like wedding gear on.
Was she wasted at that time?
I mean, it's fair to say that most people were pretty drunk at this point. I'm pretty sure even like the priest was drunk. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it was like late in the night.
The holy wine, of course, right?
Of course. And I mean, we were on the roof of a hotel at a pool in Amalfi Coast. I mean, like, life was just fantastic for a moment, right? Take off my clothes. I jump in the water, and because quickly we both realized, even though she can swim, because she's wearing like a wedding type gown, it's dragging her down. All the guys are like, why not? We'll jump in. So all my bros take off their clothes, jump in the water. We're all having a good time. But my date at this point is kind of thinking that she can swim, even though I'm having to hold her up. And I say, look, you got to get out of the water. This is not going to work. And we're walking back to our hotel. We're like dripping wet. The wedding's over. It's playtime is over. And we get back to the room, and I say, again, foolishly trying to argue with a drunk person. And I said, hey, that's not really that cool. Like, my friends are awesome, but like, it's a wedding. That's not the kind of thing that we should be doing. They'll understand, they'll get it, but like, everyone was worried. Again, she gets really upset and starts blaming things on me, and I'm very confused by this point because, look, I've dated and stuff. I've made my share of mistakes. I've done some stupid things, but really, I honestly felt like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong here. But again, we get in this argument, and she goes, you know what? I'm breaking up with you. I'm leaving. I'm taking a flight back. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? You're telling me we're in Italy, we're at this wedding, we're at this beautiful place. You get drunk and fall in the pool, and you're breaking up with me? Like, I'm very confused. I didn't quite get it. Eventually, like, we had this, one of those long drunk arguments, and we both go to bed angry, which is not fun. We wake up in the morning, and we try to resolve it, and the next day is her birthday, and we're flying to Greece. And I didn't want to break up, and I said to her, like, those kind of statements are not really fair. They're just. But at this point, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I was lost, obviously. So we get to Greece, and we have this night. It's her birthday. It's perfect. We're at the Acropolis. I invite she runs into some of her friends that were happen to be traveling there. I run into some of my friends. We have this beautiful birthday dinner, and again, there's drinking involved. And which I think was probably the big moral point of the story. But some guy at this restaurant hits on her. Like she's in the bathroom and he tries to kiss her. And so when we are on the cab home, she's like very visibly upset. I'm like, hey, is everything okay? She goes, that guy tried to make out with me. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's like ridiculous. Do you want me to say anything? She's like, no. But she's very upset. I'm like, well, you want me to do it? She's like, no, but these are the kind of friends you hang out with. But eventually we get in this huge argument, and she says, I'm breaking up with you. And at that point, after hearing it 3 times, I said, you know what? You should go, because you're not happy here, and I'm not happy now. And if this is how you want to have conversations by having ultimatums, clearly we don't have a future as a couple. So we went to bed. I went to bed. The next day, we were supposed to fly to Santorini. I had booked us this romantic cliff-top room with a hot tub in the room at Santorini. Yeah.
Nice.
And I wake up. She wakes me up at like 5:30 a.m. She goes, I bought the tickets home. I'm like, oh, you bought the tickets?
Shit.
And she's like, yeah. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And I'm like, barely have my clothes on, barely half awake, and she leaves. And I gotta be honest, I was heartbroken. I even though I knew it wasn't my fault necessarily, I felt like I had messed up. Because, I think finding a partner is obviously very hard to do, and finding someone you have connection with is really hard to do, and anytime you lose someone. But I was like, I was in a daze. I had to cancel my flight to Santorini. I luckily emailed Airbnb and actually said, hey, my girlfriend broke up with me, and they refunded me the money, which is super nice of them.
Oh, you just gave a little plug for Airbnb. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. No, I didn't expect that at all, but it just, I felt like I had really messed up, you know?
Where do you think you messed up?
So in hindsight, I think the real thing is how do you, when you're attracted to someone, when you feel this connection is there, what do you do when you see red flags? Because I think it happens a lot that when you're attracted to someone, you rationalize everything. And while, no one's accusing anyone of being an alcoholic, I don't think it's that far. I think drinking especially, not that I think anything's wrong with drinking. I still enjoy drinking. I still think it's one of those things socially, it's a socially accepted drug. And it does have consequences. And I think also when it comes to relationships, whether it's drinking or what, your mind's altered and you start saying and doing things you normally wouldn't say or do.
Did you talk to her at all while you were sober about the things that were bothering you?
In hindsight, I want to say I think I tried to. I think the honest answer is I was probably scared because I probably knew I would lose her if we actually had that conversation.
From what I'm hearing, and I may be way off,
Yeah.
but it kind of sounds like she was looking for a way out as opposed to looking a way to stay together.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think you're totally right.
How does it feel to hear that?
Like, do you mean like sabotaging?
I mean, maybe just looking for ways out of the relationship as opposed to looking to really work to make sure it stays together.
I think you have these conversations when you're with someone, and for me, when you have a conversation about the future with someone, like, hey, where do you want to live? How many kids do you want to have? What kind of love do you expect to have? Like, how do you feel about family? To me, when you have those conversations with people, I start feeling like, oh, this is a real thing. This is not like, we're just dating. And I think while you might be right, it sounds like you're right in that she was sabotaging and trying to get out. I was rationalizing it like, I don't know what I was doing, honestly.
I don't think she was trying to get out at all. I actually just think that you guys were trying to force something that wasn't there yet. And I think when you don't have a strong foundation, yet you have these ideas of what the future look like, you kind of refocus on something that didn't really matter yet. But I totally agree with you that when you feel this connection with someone, when you see a future with them, when you're so attracted to them, even these issues that don't sit well, you're able to just kind of brush them off and say, this is just a one-time deal, or this is something I can tolerate, this is something I can accept. Like connections like these don't come around that often. It's so rare. So when you have one, you're like, no, this is the right person for me. I mean, I haven't felt this way in so long. That one little thing, this is just a little thing. It's not a red flag at all.
I mean, I do think love is a drug. There's all these
It's a hell of
hormones.
a drug.
It's a hell of a drug. It's a great drug, but I think it's one of those things where like you get into it and like you said, you ignore these things because you're feeling this high, right? And I don't want to blame any one person for that because I think I have my own choices in saying like, hey, I could have walked, or I could have had that conversation at a time that was appropriate. I do think there's something in the genders where, a lot of times you hear a girl saying that guy was a jerk, he was an asshole, and I had to like confront him about it. And like, I think when you're a guy, you want to find a balance between how to bring up something with a woman, but have it still be respected, and like, there's a tricky way to do it, or maybe I just don't know the right way to do it yet.
Are you talking about having a hard conversation in a real way?
I get it because I think I'm trying to put myself in her shoes, and I'm thinking maybe the way you approached your confrontation with her may have come off condescending. If I were in that situation, I probably would have thought, okay, I'm never going to live up to this person that he wants me to be. So I might as well just remove myself from the situation now. He obviously wants me to be someone that I'm not.
So you think there was a lot of high expectations?
I don't think it's high expectations, but I bet some of the ways that Ketan, that you said, confronted her was like, maybe that wasn't so cool, or maybe you shouldn't have done that. And that could translate to someone who is intoxicated, who is also in love, to be like, oh my gosh, he's just belittling me right now, telling me that this is not someone that he wants to be with. So I might as well just leave because I'm never going to be that person. I would also say that, there's a certain way that we have to approach people and deliver our thoughts. And I've had to learn through the hard way, and we've all had to learn how to communicate these things. And one of the ways is what you did actually hurt me or scared me versus, you know, what you did was not so cool, or like, you know, my friends would have thought that wasn't so cool. It's more like how you made me feel, why that directly affects me should matter to you.
No, she brought this up, and I think I've heard a term called like love language, where it's like,
Yes.
Yes.
A lot.
like it's like, how do you argue in a productive way with someone?
Yes.
What you're saying is where you get off what's off your chest. You're not judging, right? But clearly you're upset and you say it. I think that's a skill I obviously don't have yet, and I'd love to grow better at. But like,
And I think that's a skill that a lot of people have a hard time with. And going back to what Yue said, it's you first start off with I statements, right? That's the beginning of it. I this, I that, because it brings it to me, right? So the going from you, which puts it on the other person, to I brings it on to me, and then you got to be a little vulnerable, which is hard for people. I mean, I've gone through where I was like, no, I'm fine, it doesn't matter, but I feel disappointed, I feel hurt, I feel angry, I feel upset, I feel frustrated, I feel ignored.
I want to know, how did this end? Did this relationship just end there?
I mean, she went back to the States, and I had a few days left before my flight, which was 4 probably most depressing days ever. And I was like a lost puppy. But, you know, well, the interesting part is I came back to the States, and a week later I get in a bike accident and break my arm and my wrist.
Oh.
And I gotta say, it was probably actually what saved me, though, because I think after a breakup like this, my typical usage would have been to go out and party and get drunk and do stupid things. But because I was injured, it forced me to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent the next few months really kind of asking myself, like, what went wrong here? And we talked a little bit, and I said, you know, I really can't have this in my life. And I think 2 months later, she got married.
Wow.
And I think your point of how she wanted out, I think, is very true, because I think I didn't realize till this later, but I think I was a rebound, which I've never been a rebound.
Well, you never think you're the rebound. Nobody ever thinks they're the rebound.
And when someone has this conversation with you about your future, you're like, yeah, this is real, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing I've read about called future fakers, and it's this concept of like people talk this big game about a relationship and where they want it to go, and while they might realistically want that, their ability to make that happen might not be matching up with it. And I feel like that is kind of what happened, where like I might have future faked myself. I might have predicted and said, yes, this is the right person for me in the future, when really I didn't take a look at the present and said, wait a minute, what's going on here? And
you know what, man? I got to give you extreme credit, because you did something that a lot of guys don't do. And I've had that mistake in the past, where after like a breakup, after someone really hurts you, you took the time to heal. You took the time to actually feel. What a lot of people do is after they had something that's so painful, they want to throw themselves into something. They want to get distracted so that they don't feel it in the present. And what you did was allow yourself to feel it. I remember I dated this girl for 2.5 years, and she ended up breaking up with me, and it was the first person that ever broke my heart. That was my first heartbreak. And what I did was I started dating a stripper right afterwards.
Yeah.
And don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I mean, she was a very kind, lovely person, by the way, but don't do it, right? And it took a longer time to heal because of that.
Ketan's saying that he was forced to do it because he got in that accident.
But I think
that's perfect timing.
Yeah, it's perfect timing. Honestly, yeah, it sucked to get in a bike accident. It sucks to be injured. But honestly, like, I know my patterns. I know when I've had bad breakups. Yeah, I will. I mean, I haven't dated a stripper necessarily, but like, hey, I've made some terrible choices after a breakup. I mean, I think we all do, right? We all want to find a way to heal, maybe not the smart way, but you know, I do think as you get older, because I'm older now, I'm not in my 20s anymore, obviously, but like, I don't know if there's like solutions out there that says this is how you argue with someone. Or when you're so early with someone, how do you even broach the topic? Like, hey, if we do get in an argument, this is how we should proceed. Like, I think
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to set guidelines. And I don't think a lot of people do that where they say, listen, there might be times when we're talking and I might need to just step away for like 10 minutes,
Right.
right? Or listen, maybe we could talk about it for an hour and then rest on it, or make sure we don't go to bed angry. Like you said, like that sucks going to bed angry, right? So
Yeah.
I
No.
think I think it's hard to set those guidelines from the beginning, but once you do start talking a little bit more, you can set that a lot earlier than what other people think. And it shows that, at least I believe it shows that you're showing appreciation for having a conversation to work on the relationship. So setting guidelines and boundaries from the beginning, I think, is something that's really helpful, and it sets the tone for the rest of the relationship.
I find it interesting that you're bringing this up because, you're a father. You're a father to a teenage daughter. You're a grown ass man, yet you don't know how to communicate. I mean, this is a fundamental problem in society today where we don't learn communication skills ever. It's not part of our coursework. It's not part of society, and then we're thrown into these relationships where we fall in love. Sure, it's easy to fall in love. We know what it's like to fall in love, but then we don't know how to communicate with that person that we love. So this is a problem, right? We get ourselves into these funky situations, and we're like, there's no guidebook. You can't like take a course on communication with your loved one.
They have sex ed, but they don't have like relationship ed.
They don't, and that's what's lacking. That's what we need to do. I mean, I want us to start something like in middle schools, starting there. We're just reactive. We're not proactive. So we react to these situations, and then it becomes me versus you versus us as a team.
I mean, I don't think myself as like a necessarily a terrible communicator. I do think something happens when you have that love hormone in your body, that chemical, and it doesn't matter how smart you think you are. We've all seen smart friends be in love and make terrible decisions.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
All the time. That's why we're able to do this podcast.
So I think the hardest thing is like one of the things I'm working on now is discernment. When you meet someone, being able to discern what is right, what is wrong, early on enough where you can cut it if you need to,
Yes.
or at least discuss it if you need to.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest, as a guy, generally we do the chasing, and we are the ones that have to come out, present ourselves in a way. I'm not saying it's always like this, but like whatever way I was brought up, but my notion is that guys have to do stuff to make someone like them, and I think that bringing up conversations has this fear, and I'm just being really honest and clear here. Like, this fear is if I tell you something that you're going to want to leave.
Really? Because women have the same fear.
Well, I'm glad that you do, but I think for guys, there's this pressure of like we have to somehow sell sometimes. I'm not saying in a bad way. Like, I think it's good to be on your best behavior and really put yourself out there. But I have no problem doing that. I do think there's this notion of everyone has their deal breaker list, and you do one thing wrong and people snap you out, right? And look, that's unfortunately part of modern dating. But I think one of the fears that I personally can say I want to work on is how do I tell someone that I care about that what they're doing isn't okay without the fear that they're going to leave.
But I have to say this, and this is my last thought on this whole scenario. If two people in a relationship defined what commitment means to them, then these conversations would be a lot easier to have. Because if both people are committed, then both people want to work on these things, And it doesn't, even if if it sounds like you're attacking me, if I already gave my commitment to this relationship, then I would tell you that I feel attacked and I will want to have a conversation, talk about how that makes me feel and how that makes you feel. And then it becomes a conversation, not so much like, oh, I feel attacked and I'm going to leave. So I still think that what was really lacking from the beginning was this verbal communication of what commitment means to both of you.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay, question of the day. This one comes from David, who says, how many drinks should you have on a date?
Yes, you should never have more drinks than the other person. And I think 2 is probably the max.
2 max. Okay.
And the reason is for a couple things. One, you want to get to know them and not get to know the drunk them.
Uh-huh.
It's two different people. And two, drinks in SF are really expensive. You can't be shoveling down $100 on a date. I'm sorry. That's just like it's not sustainable.
It's expensive.
It's very expensive. But also in three, it's I think, what are you gonna hide behind if you're gonna be drinking that much? Like, you're not gonna be yourself even.
So I have this question. I recently had this dilemma. I just recently came back. I went on this date that was like 8 hours, and we were having a really good time. And the whole time I was like trying to fight back not drinking because I was like on all these like cold medication. Like, I probably shouldn't be drinking with cold medication. But then I was like, I really want to keep talking to him. It's cold outside. I'm not going to be walking. It's at night. So the only place we can really go to is a bar and sit there and talk, or go to his place or my place, which I'm not going to do on a first date. So when you're sitting at a bar, it's really awkward to just sit there and not drink. What do you do?
I've become a huge fan of ginger beer. I agree with you that our society creates an awkwardness for being at a bar and not drinking. People are like, why aren't you drinking? What's up, bro?
Yeah.
And I just do it. I say two things. I say, one, I got to work out in the morning. I just always say that, and people immediately somehow accept that, which usually it actually is true. I do have a workout in the morning. But two, just having a ginger beer, I think, kind of lets people off the hook, where you can enjoy the notion of drinking. Because sharing food together is a great thing. Sharing something together like that brings you closer. But you can just order something that's, non-alcoholic.
For me, I think like our guest, and well, the guest is going to learn, and our listeners know from me is, I say zero. For me, yeah, absolutely. I want to be as present as I can be, so I can be there completely with the person, and I rather do the harder work now than later. So because people like to call it liquid courage, and that's cool, but I rather work harder now at the beginning so that I can genuinely find the connection with the person, and then it's so much easier from that point. And I'd rather experience a person as they are and learn about that earlier than later.
Yeah, makes sense.
Let me ask, can I ask you this?
You're damn right you can.
Do you think that being that sober that you are able to go in for that first kiss?
Ha! Sober first kiss, sober first kiss, sober first kiss.
So, I mean, I probably only had one or two, well, maybe a couple of drunk first kisses. But out of the many first kisses, like 95% of them have been sober. And I'm telling you, it's just, I can see it in the woman's eyes when she's ready for that moment because I'm connected to her. At least that's how I feel. I feel that I can see it when she's ready for it, and I could just go in, and it's great. And I've had the weirdest, I remember one of my first kiss that I had was, we were walking at Golden Gate Park, and we're walking along this like river stream thing. I don't know, there's like waterfalls there, and there's like these rocks. So we're walking across the rocks, and she misstepped and fell into the grossest, most disgusting part of the whole waterfall thing, and she just stunk. So I pull her out. She's dripping wet. She's all nervous. We're laughing. And I literally just pull her out, and she looks at me, and I look at her, and I knew it, and we had our first kiss right there.
Oh.
And then I told her that she smelled really bad, but that was a great first kiss.
That's mad skills. Mad skills.
So the trick is push them into the waterfall,
right,
and then pull them.
I remember that.
And then get a ginger beer. Yeah, got it. Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Ketan, for sharing your story. That was awesome. That was like a great story to talk about.
Thank you so much, man.
And listeners at home, don't forget to submit your stories. And remember, we can always keep you anonymous. We can change your name, change your voice, change the names of the people in your story. We want to protect your identity. And last but not least,
stay dateable.
Looking for a great sober date idea? Try Scoot.
Get some perspective by riding up to Twin Peaks or Bernal Heights for a great view and the wind in your hair. Join Scoot with a significant other and explore the city. Sharing new experiences together is a great way to grow your relationship. Scoot offers electric mopeds and mini cars, so you can each have your own, or share a Scoot quad. Dateable listeners get a special deal, $10 for 3 hours of scooting. Sign up at scoot.co/dateable or use the code HOTDATE. To connect with us, visit dateablepodcast.com.